Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning at our City Council study session. We'll go ahead and get started. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Adamson?
Here.
Bray?
Here.
Gina?
Here.
Lurick?
Here.
Johnston?
Here.
Manon?
Here.
Flat?
Here. Thank you. We'll jump to agenda item number 2, which is Aid for Friends, Idaho Housing and Finance Association, New Shelter Business Plan, and CDBG request. Representatives from Aid for Friends and Idaho Housing and Finance Association will discuss the group's goals and business plan, as well as a proposal to utilize Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds for a new homeless shelter facility. Good morning.
Good morning. You can be here. Okay. You want to come up now? Okay. Wow. Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you very much for this opportunity to again speak to you. We spoke to you last month, and we're kind of doing a follow-up on some of the questions that were asked. My name is BJ Stensland. I'm the Executive Director at Aid for Friends, and I have 2 of my board members with me, Shannon Ansley and Jeff Garvin, who's our board treasurer. I just want to talk a little bit about how the ball started rolling. To be honest, when I became the executive director in 2007, there were discussions about a need for a new facility back then. And we would work on it for a bit, and other things would come up, and priorities were shifted. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, the board really got more interested in looking at what a new facility would entail. And we started talking about strategic plan and getting a committee. But it wasn't until last fall, every year we do improvements to that building. A lot of them are necessities to keep the building operational. Some are improvements, some are replacements of sewer lines, roofs, whatever. And every year it's just another piece to keep it going. With that inspiration, the board got very serious and started a strategic plan, and we began really discussing what we need to do. At that time, totally different. I had no idea. Brady Ellis was contacting all of the different regions asking about their needs. And so I talked about Region 5, and then I brought up our efforts as a board to create or update a very old strategic plan. And from there, I didn't know, but the board at Idaho Housing and Finance was looking for 1 or 2 communities that would be a good fit for a capital improvement investment project. So that's how it started. The first meeting we had, several of you were there, and we toured the shelter. That was the end of March. We had several meetings, February. We had several meetings in March with potential funders that were identified from that first meeting. We thought we might have some collaborative efforts. We had an invitation to participate and assimilate into the crisis center. That was the end of March. I went to one meeting, they discussed the implementation, and later I was informed that they were refocusing and bringing that project to work exclusively on the crisis center and secondary, the medical facility. It could be Pocatello Free Clinic. So they were shrinking that effort, and that was in April. So we regrouped, and we're still looking at this being a very viable project, one that is community-based and supported, which Aid for Friends is. A couple of things were brought up at that meeting, and one of them was, what's your plan? Well, we had a strategic plan, but that was for the whole agency, and now we've designed a business plan specifically for this project. Shannon's going to lead you through some of that. I apologize we didn't get it to you sooner than yesterday, but it's a good document, and we wanted it had to be approved by the board, and we got final approval yesterday on the board.
Okay. I'm hoping that most of you have at least been able to read through the executive summary. If not, it's just a general overview of the document. Brady Ellis had a lot of input into that, but it's just a general description of the agency and what we're trying to do. I'm just going to blaze through a few of the sections that sort of talk about the company and financing, our mission, values. I think you're all probably familiar with all of that.
If you hit something you want them to see on the screen.
Yeah. The main thing, let me look here and then I'll blaze through.
Okay.
Is the page 10 in the document where we start talking about shelter expansion. This describes, just in summary, that we propose to have a new shelter, not a new construction, but rehab of an existing building in town. This overview describes a little bit about expanded facilities. We've already started working with Jerry Myers of Myers Anderson Architect to help us design sort of what we feel like we need in terms of an expanded facility. Capacity increase that we're hoping for is an increase over the current shelter capacity of by 150%.
I just want to note that estimate provided by Jerry is for new construction. So that includes all of the walls and infrastructure. So it's a higher number than what we're looking at with a rehab project.
And that's the bid that, or the estimate that BJ is talking about is in attachment B of the document. I'm not going to scroll back to that, but the summary of required funds, capital needs, you can read this yourself. So our estimated total of acquisition of property and rehab and furnishing is 1.6 million. And then just for comparison, we added the annual Aid for Friends budget information at the bottom.
We intend to get a more concrete number for the rehab and for furnishings once we've actually secured the property and we can look at the actual
Have you
price.
looked at specific properties already?
Yes.
Okay.
We have actually looked at about 8, and the first thing I did, I got ISU Bengal Solutions to do an assessment because HUD requires that the building have access to amenities, have a walkability so it's close to other resources. So they provided a beautiful analysis of it. The next thing I did was check zoning, and that took a couple of them off because for a homeless shelter it is a very restricted zoning allowance, and regardless of where it's at, whether it's commercial general or core commercial, it needs a conditional use permit. So we now are looking about at 3 or 4. We have identified one as meeting our needs the best, but at this time we're not going to announce where that location is.
Okay, the next page, page 12, are the funding sources that we have investigated or requested, and sort of just gives a summary of where we are at this point.
I think that was one of the questions. Are we going to be funding this alone? And we want to show you now where we're reaching out, where we've got commitments, and where we are in the process of getting that secured funding. It's most important that we get that cash match of the $500,000 because that allows us to really move into the acquisition phase. Without that commitment, and it doesn't have to be a check, just a commitment, Idaho Housing and Finance doesn't want to proceed, again, like the sole funder. I do want to share with you that it is now called Pocatello Housing Assistance and Community Partners, our old housing authority. They have committed and $25,000 towards this project. And we have some very good relationships developing with ON Semiconductor.
Can you help us understand like how you came up with these different allocations and decided that Chubbuck should be 25, Bannock County should be 250, and Pocatello should be 350? I mean, what was the reason for those numbers?
Very glad you asked. Part of it is population, where Pocatello is 54,000, Chubbuck is 14,000. I looked at what the city of Pocatello contributes annually, and even found out that's 15 cents per resident, and Chubbuck provides 4,000 a year, 14,000 population, so they have a higher per resident rate. But that's what I did. I looked at it. Our initial thing was to ask the city of Chubbuck for 50,000, and that was not realistic. The other part for the 350 is the ability to use CDBG through the city of Pocatello. So that doesn't, that includes what we're asking for that venue or that method of paying for a new facility.
While we're on that topic, in your presentation, you talked quite a bit about this being a facility for all of Region 5.
Yes.
What's the rest of Region 5 doing to contribute to your project?
We are trying right now to work with Bannock County. We know that the other outlying counties, if they can contribute anything, we'll ask them to, we'll meet with them, but we don't consider them right now our core for that 500,000. We're doing this in phases, and we can discuss that, but the first phase is to get that 500,000. The other counties and smaller cities, from my experience, are not able to contribute a large amount. It's not that we won't ask for them to participate, but we will not have them on the primary list.
How much are those counties' residents using your facility?
Very little. Very little. I would say 80 to 85% actually come from the city of Pocatello. So most of the people using the shelter are our residents. We have a few that come from out of state, and a few, but very few, come from those other counties. Okay.
How about these two? Do you want to?
With this chart on page 12, we have also put together a fundraising goal on page 31 that kind of explains how we're going to first focus on core funding, then we're going to go for the additional funding through corporations, foundations, other community partners, and our final step, which I think Jim alluded to at our first meeting, would be the capital campaign. Everything I have been taught and trained is that capital campaign should be at the very end, a short-term thrust but we will be doing that at the end of this fundraising strategy. But we're going to do a great campaign. But let's get the core pieces in first.
PJ, can we back up just a little bit? You did this funding source by population. 350,000 divided by the 54,000 people is what? And 14,000 or 25,000 divided by the 14,000. Are we on the equal? Are we talking about equals grounds? Or are we talking about?
My analysis was not based on the 350 because that's CDBG. What I looked at is what each city annually provides Aid for Friends. The city of Pocatello provides 8,000 and the city of Chubbuck provides 4,000. So that's where I looked at populations.
What were the numbers? Do you remember?
Numbers of the population?
Well, the per capita, what?
Sure. For the city of Pocatello, it was 15 cents, and for residents in Chubbuck, it was 27 cents.
But we're not considering CDBG money for this as City of Pocatello money.
In that 350, it includes CDBG.
Yeah, I think that's all CDBG is what, if I remember right.
It could be. It's really up to the council how they would like to do that. If they want to pay some out of their general account, so be it. Or it could go up to 350 through CDBG.
Okay.
And honestly, I haven't had a moment to make an appointment with Mayor England, but he's on my list.
Sounds good.
He's on a lot of people's lists.
He's on my list too, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'm curious though, if you will do an analysis on the 350,000 from the city of Pocatello and the 25,000 and see what that cost difference is.
Well, that's
Okay.
easy to do.
Yeah, we can.
That's easy to do.
Because if we're going to look at population for this request for this, then it would be.
But the city of Chubbuck does not have CDBG money to utilize, so theirs would come out of their general account. So I don't.
I can appreciate that, but that's not my deal.
Okay.
Well,
Just
I think-
stating.
I think that needs to be tempered with the idea that we have the major drop-off points in Pocatello with the railroad and with the access with the freeway and stuff like that and other roads. So we incur a lot more clients, so to speak, for Aid for Friends and other places.
That's very true.
So just something to think about.
Okay.
So the next, I'll blast through the next few pages and then stop at page 18. I just wanted to briefly make the point that the top paragraph just describes market needs in our Region 5 of the HUD designation of Region 5. And I'll just let you folks read that. On page 20, also at the top of the page, the market analysis of over a 12-month period in Region 5 of the 694 clients served during that 12-month period, point in time count, 436 were served by Aid for Friends. A few more details in there about our capacity and number of bed nights and what we normally have during a point in time count, and we're at 115% utilization rate. So we have more than we can actually serve.
Is anyone being turned away?
Most of our turnaways have come, either they don't do a breathalyzer, they may have other, that's the primary thing. We try to accommodate as much as possible, and we're having a hard time determining, because if they call, we will probably say the shelter is full. But if they come to our shelter right now, we probably have 6 people sleeping in the living room area. So we try not to if they come, but we do have turn away. But again, we try to accommodate as many as we can.
Okay. On page 22 is our next thing that we want you to focus on. And BJ will talk about that.
These are preliminary milestone markers. We realize that some of them will be out of our control. The environmental assessment, we can't determine exactly how long. I put this together for another grant application, and it fits fairly well in what I'm hearing will be the timelines. But from start to finish, this should take 1 year. Once we actually secure the property.
On page 23, we do a strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats analysis for the agency, but I just wanted to point out that that's primarily applies to the existing facility and not necessarily the new facility. In particular, the weaknesses section on page 24, where it discusses limited space, inadequate parking, our conditional use permit, prohibits street parking, that type of thing. And we'll blast through value added. I'll let you folks read that. Financials and performance. Is there anything that you want to?
We realize that with a new facility and the capacity to house more people, even we're planning to consolidate, so our admin office isn't a rented suite anymore. We're consolidating it to one facility, but we will still need additional staff. That just makes sense. We're going to serve more people, and we need to have that staffing to meet the needs.
So if I could back you up to page 31, is our key measures for success, key metrics for success. And we've already explained our fundraising goal. This diagram just summarizes that. Our sustainability goal metric for success anticipates that annual operating expenses for the new facility will be approximately $208,000 per year, which is an increase of $100,000 per year over the current operating budget. The following table discusses or shows you that shelter capacity, bed count will increase from the current number of 34 to between 80 and 100 able to accommodate that many people.
The secured employment rate is found as added value. We are going to provide a workforce development center. So that is why I believe we can increase employment opportunities. We're going to have a volunteer group manage it and utilize sources that are already here, ISU, the Department of Labor, United Way, to come in and do training, and also have it for a spot job posting if people have immediate jobs available, to allow our clients to apply for those jobs.
And I believe that's all that I need to go through, so I'll let you Unless there are questions.
I have, your design of your new facility, will there be more individualized rooms? Because
Yeah.
I hear a lot of complaints about 30 guys sleeping in one area.
Yes. And interesting, yesterday, Brady Ellis sent me some information on homeless shelter design. And we were talking about that, how important it is not to have the barracks approach, but to have more rooms. Our initial thought was to put 3 single individuals, whether male or female, 6 in a room instead of 18. So we're looking at that once we get a final location and do some more research on design for shelters. Our family floor that has currently 5, we initially wanted to double that to 10 rooms for families. But yes, we are looking at that, and why not? Here we have a perfect opportunity to make it not just bigger, but more accommodating, so it provides a better environment for success.
Follow up to that. When we went through another shelter idea, I did a pretty extensive reading and research. And one of the things that I found out was that the success of transitioning homeless people is multiplied by more of a motel approach than a warehousing approach.
Yeah.
And so if people had individualized rooms, they were more likely to get their feet underneath them and be able to collect and become employed and self-sustained. And is that something you're looking at?
We're going to do more research on it. Like I said, I just was introduced to that. At the time, and that was back in February, we were reducing the number of people to a room. I don't know if we can have single occupancy rooms just because of the cost of putting in individual rooms, but how can we make it more comfortable and more private? Because right now it is not. You're right.
And the families would have individual rooms?
Yes, yes. And the families, and we've tried that very hard with our 5 rooms to keep them, but if they have 7 children, we have to use a couple of rooms. So how can we accommodate them too?
And I think at another meeting, you suggested that your client load, the increase has mainly been in families over single people.
And single women. Where before 72% were single men, now our family floor, which includes couples, households with children, and single women, are the majority. And it's especially true this week.
Mr. Mayor, BJ, fundraising is, really a tough game. Have you had the opportunity to look at other locations that have had that fundraise to create a facility like we're talking about?
We are looking at other models, other areas that have successfully done that. We do know that trying to get the core funding done and then moving out, we're hoping that a prominent business here in Pocatello will be the torchbearer to help us light the flame for other businesses. They've verbalized that they're willing to do it, and that would be our next phase, is to get that done and then finally do a capital campaign. And we'll work closely with IHFA on the capital campaign, United Way, and probably bring a campaign manager, like we will a project manager once acquisition and rehab begins.
The reason I bring up the idea, in my mind, of looking at what others have done, how much does a community really get involved as contrasted with the corporate world? I know we ask our businesses for a lot, but Jeff?
So one of the things IHFA shared with us is that the city of Nampa did a similar project in the early 2000s, and they donated money towards that. And they did get broad community support, both from individuals, from corporations, churches, the cities, and they kind of shared that model with us, and it worked out really well. Once you kind of get the ball rolling, the community really gets behind it, and that's what they found over there. I think that's why Brady's excited. IHFA is excited because I think they can see the same components happening here. The same people are showing interest, the same groups. And it worked really well over there. It's been about 15 years, but we're doing a nice shelter in Nampa now.
Well, I know we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but it's really tough for us as a city council to know what our commitment should be. We know and understand the importance of what we're doing, but if we can get the community itself to do it without using tax dollars or even the CGB, the funds that
CDBG.
this alphabet game. I'm supportive, but not of tax dollars.
In your presentation, you talked about the food bank distribution. Are you not able to do that now?
We are not doing a weekly distribution for the community like we did when we had our admin building offices as part of the food bank, because we just don't have the coordination or space to do that. That workforce center will also be used for food distribution on a weekly basis. We do have food for the shelter clients, and if somebody is in dire need, our shelter manager will get them some food. But there are other food pantries throughout the community that provide that.
On page 16, you talk about the point-in-time count. What time of the year was that taken?
Oh, in the worst time ever. It is usually the last Wednesday in January, and that has been a time designated by HUD. So whether it's January 27th or the 31st, it's usually that last Wednesday in January.
Does homelessness vary by time of year?
It used to quite a bit. I used to see a lot of fluctuations with seasons, and now I'm surprised that I'm seeing almost consistent numbers, whether it's summer and even the winter sometimes can have fewer because people have moved farther south that are truly transient. But otherwise, it has been pretty stable. The numbers have been high.
You're consistently full?
We are at capacity or overflowing 85% of the time. Okay.
I might just throw this out. You do an incredible job with what you have.
Yes.
It's unbelievable what you can accomplish with what you have, and there's no question there's a need for a larger facility and probably different facility. There's no question there. It's the question that I always come back to is kind of the same thing that Jim just said. It's difficult with tax dollars. I wouldn't be in favor of taking tax dollars from the general fund to do something. That'd be hard. We're in the process of closing down video services because of that very thing. We're struggling to find tax dollars, and it's hard to justify closing that down and then giving the money here. I like the CDBG money is a different story probably, but it's still there's still a desperate need for it throughout the community for us to use it, so it's going to be interesting. Your timeline, I was looking at your timeline. The September 1 is when I just had it. Was when you were going to get the commitments or something. I can't remember.
Hopefully, we'll secure the facility at that time.
You'll secure
By that time.
Page 23. 22.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking at this, thank you, Roger. As I'm looking at the timeline, you'll have an offer on the property. So before then, we'll need commitments from all these other people that are going to hopefully donate and contribute. The environmental assessment and then the conditional use permit, finalized purchase, occupancy next year. Is there any way we can get some of the CDBG money from 2018 now so that we're not looking way into the future? Or is it all gone?
Adam, we brought Adam to talk CDBG.
A quick question, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Adam Lane, CDBG Program Manager, Planning and Development Services. So I provided really quick this. So this is a snapshot, this document, a snapshot of at the beginning of our program year, so PY 2018. Just to show what was available at the time. So all of these funds are programmed, right, allocated to a certain activity, and there's probably about $200,000 that is obligated from this. But this, that's at this point. But here can show you, where we started at our program year. So
200 out of the 743.
Yeah. So at this point, because we're 3 months into our program year, we have about $200,000 obligated, to projects at this point. But you can see at the beginning, if funding levels stay here, consistently, this is kind of where we would be at the beginning of a program year. So this is the kind of funds that, they do fluctuate, but might be available. So are they available in 18? Not really. I mean, we've allocated everything to certain activities, and it would be difficult to find funds in 18. I would say PY 19 would be the first place to be finding significant funds.
And when does that 19 budget start?
Well, that would be April 1 of.
Okay, that's 19. April to.
Yeah, April to
March.
March. Yeah.
You gotta love the fiscal years.
Right.
So are we consistently using our program money in the way that you've got outlined here?
For the most part, yes. Mm-hmm. Bigger chunks go to maybe to sidewalks than to rehab, or vice versa. As funding needs come up. But this is generally where we use our funds. And again, if funding level is a little higher this year than previous years, hopefully they stay there, and it makes it easier to make this commitment. Some of the protections that I would be looking for if we entered into this deal with IHFA would be, if funding levels disappear or drop, that we can renegotiate the terms of any loan, make lower payments as funding allows, things like that.
Okay.
Again, a protection against our funds would be we would not make any payments to it until the project is totally complete, until occupancy happens. So if for whatever reason.
So we wouldn't put money toward it at this point anyway.
And we would not, no. Even at the the earliest we could program money to it would be PY 2019, but if the project is not going to be completed by then, it would be pushed back.
Okay.
Along those lines, I read this letter from Brady Ellis, dated July 10, talking about, because of the inconsistency of the CDBG funds, we might be forced to tap general funds, and I'm not willing to do that.
Well, one of those stipulations is if it drops down to a certain point, and we haven't come to that agreement yet, but say it drops down to $300,000, that would be fairly crippling to our program, and so we wouldn't pay more than $30,000 back to them from that program year. And because, that would just be
So
too much.
it just percentage-wise kind of is what you're...
Right. So, I mean, if it drops, much more below that, it's it's going to be very difficult. But yeah, if it goes to 250, the maximum we would pay back out of CDBG would be $25,000, and the terms being going further out, and they're agreeing to that up front.
No more than 10 years.
That's what they're proposing if it goes away. So if CDBG goes away, the city's on the hook out of general funds.
Yeah.
There's no other protection against that. The only thing we really need protection against is if it drops too low. And then the terms are out as long as it takes, to pay back the entire amount.
What I think this letter provides are some of the initial offerings we discussed. I foresee that terms are going to be negotiated so everyone's satisfied that this is what their initial offering is. Do you want to talk about
that third bullet point where they say the agreement between IHFA and the city of Pocatello will not be forgiven for any reason, including defunding of the federal CDBG program?
That's not what he said when he met with us.
Yeah, he didn't say that, but he wrote it.
He said that in unusual circumstances, they would consider it, and he said he won't go on.
I think they've changed their mind.
Well, but this is the original thing. What he suggested in person to us was that if it became an unusual circumstance, that they would even have it within their power to forgive that.
This is written 2 days ago, Roger.
This is
I know,
late.
but I'm saying what the guy said to us directly.
And I think that's changed.
Well, I see this as his formal thing from where he's starting his basis. But he alluded to the point that there would be room for negotiation, because that was his point when he came. When we asked, though, he said that he thought that there could be a forgiveness if there was a default.
That's what he said then. Now he's saying something totally different.
I understand that. What I'm saying is he said that day.
I heard him that day.
Okay,
Now
and
he's
then
saying something different.
And that day, when we really pressed him, which we can't do because he's not here, but we got this letter, he said that he thought that they would forgive it in an unusual circumstance, like defunding a CDBG. I understand what he said. Here, it's the same thing he started out saying that day. He hasn't changed from his bottom line there, but he had a room for negotiation that he alluded to. And that's all I'm saying.
This is just a proposal. I mean, I don't think it's in stone. It's to be negotiated. He's trying to throw out some ideas and trying to find some room to work with you guys with something that you're comfortable with, something that'll work with them. So I would not view this document as set in stone. It's negotiable. I think that they've talked about a couple of other options with us too, things that we can do. So that would ultimately have to be worked out with them, and they're the ones who would have to agree to it, so we can't really speak for them. But
Yeah.
I would think if it is negotiable, we would need to have those negotiations before any kind of commitments, so that we knew if he meant what he said or if he meant what he wrote.
yeah,
Okay.
Because they're definitely polar opposites.
yeah, there's a
And so
vibe there for sure.
So if we definitely would need to have that clarified, I think, before the feel is anyway, before we're going to make a solid commitment that we'll do this regardless.
Absolutely.
And so if there is, that would be a question to ask him. I mean, is this set in stone or is it not set in stone?
Yeah, right.
Type of a thing.
Yeah, sure.
So, because he has been on both sides there.
We can definitely get with them.
So I have a question, BJ, also. The facility that you're currently in now, do you own it? Does the city own it? Does the county own it? Does the state own it? Who owns it?
The county.
The county owns it.
And the county, while they're hard to get three of them together also, I'm hoping to meet with them. The discussions I've had with Commissioner Tavi is that property, and IHFA, that property could be signed over to IHFA to sell. And that would be part of their matching funds. And then they are going to match additional funding. But I need to get all three of them together.
Okay, and that would be part of that 250 you're asking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had an appraisal done on it recently, and well, I've heard numbers all over the place. The appraisal came into about $111,000 to $141,000. So there is some value in that property and its location, and I think it could be utilized even as student housing.
Do they own the house next to it as well?
They do.
So that includes it, so it's the 250 minus whatever you said.
Whatever this.
Yeah.
Not in
They ought to get out of the property business and give you that one too.
Well, that's just an appraisal. It's not a formal. It was a comparative analysis, is what it was.
CMA.
The CMA, Jim. You know what those are.
That's a professional term.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Speaking of the alphabet game, huh?
That one I can handle.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
This was in your plan several times, but I'm specifically looking at page 32 where you have the ongoing operations and the discussion of the fact that there will be $100,000 every year that you're going to need to increase your budget. And then in here you've indicated that the source of those funds are going to have to come from various sources, but local municipalities is listed under that. So give us an idea of what you're going to be coming to us then in the future for, so that we can, as part of this, I think we would need to have an idea of what you're going to be asking us for in those terms also.
Just in broad terms, when I look at if we're going to increase our capacity from 34 to 80, there will be an additional cost. And so I'm looking at that 8,000 potentially going to 15 or 16 as an annual increase.
Okay.
That would then align it with that 4,000 that the Chubbuck does. But it's not going to be a huge thing. I think we have some other partners that will also contribute. And again, without having this in writing, I'm hoping that Bannock County, since it no longer is the owner of the property or responsible for maintenance, will also see the advantage to having a larger, new, more adequate facility, an updated shelter. And they'll be asked to do more than what we'll ask the city. So it's not going to be a huge increase. But don't hold me to that.
I have a question as well.
Roger.
One of the things that when you met with us the first time, you talked about leveraging some of what this $50,000 a year contribution would be by not having any further requests to CDBG. If we give you that $50,000, then we're not going to be investing the $6,000 or $20,000 or the variations that we've done. Do you expect when the 7 years are up that you'll be back asking for CDBG money, or will that money go back to everybody else? In other words, if we make you a priority for 7 years, will we be able then to shift to someone else after that?
I would hope that the work that we do on the new facility will ensure that we don't have major maintenance problems, and that's the only reason we go to CDBG. We will still be asking for bus tickets, so we'll be on a line item for the bus tickets. They're wonderful, but I don't foresee that because we're hoping to upgrade that whatever is outdated to get it current and new. We hope if there needs to be a new roof is already put on. If we have a furnace, it's going to be updated. So that's the goal here, is to make it so we're not patching it every year.
So most of the CDBG money that's used now is for repair and maintenance and things like that?
They're for like critical repairs and just to keep the thing moving along.
Okay.
Safe.
So it would be reasonable to see that go away, the CDBG stuff.
Those needs would, hope would be those needs would go away for a significant amount of time. Trying to get 15, 20 years out of a project like this that no other major capital costs need to go towards. Over the last since 2002, there's been 13 awards made to Aid for Friends, totaling $80,593 that went into that facility. And so, you can argue, was that a good? It was a good use of it, of course, to keep the facility operational. What was that ultimately a good investment of the CDBG? Now there's not an asset there to draw on, and if you made this investment, the 300 or 350 or whatever it is, there is an asset, to the community and to CDBG as well. One of the things that I would want for protection against the money would be for the city to hold some sort of lien on the property, that if there's ever a change of use, if the property is ever sold, that the funds would come back to the city after the sale. So ultimately, those funds could come back.
Unless we buy a new facility in 20 years.
Right, so if there's a change of use, they decided to turn it into a discotheque or something, the city gets its money.
He reads my mind. That's where I'm going.
Discotheque. City council gets free passes.
Free roller skates.
That's right.
Yeah. In a movie theater.
Very creative.
I think one of the things we need to understand, or at least my perception is the CDBG money on an annual basis is somewhat fluid in terms of who gets the money. And so when we designate this, it's not like we're saying Aid for Friends over everybody else that's getting annual distributions, because there are very few regular annual distributions over a course of time there.
Right, there's 3 or 4 regulars that have needs.
We're kind of saying Aid for Friends, you get the first $50,000.
Yeah, well, I know that, but what I'm saying is we're not displacing somebody that's expecting to be there for long term as well, because that changes periodically. So if we say 7 years, we're not kicking somebody else out for 7 years. We're reprioritizing money, but we're not necessarily kicking anybody out, because the allocations change. Like, if I remember right, one of the first big recipients in CDBG money was Neighborhood Works, and they got a lot of money initially, and they had staff funding for that and stuff. I don't see that at all here.
Yeah, that went away this year. Their needs, kind of changed.
But I mean, it was like $60,000 or $80,000 we were putting into Neighborhood Works or whatever it was, and so there's a fluidity in terms of evolution of need and solving need and other needs arising. What we're doing is we're saying for 7 years, Aid for Friends get $50,000. And then other people line up for the rest of the pool if it stays above $300,000.
I think it's very important to get this language cleared up and find out what he means by will not be forgiven for any reason. I think those are important words to understand what he's meaning there. If he's meaning what he told us, what he said, and what he wrote, where are we at? Those negotiations, I think, are going to be very, very important, because if we're not displacing people, we're definitely saying the first $50,000 is not available, and so don't even request it if that's all we get is the $50,000. But if it's negotiable and it can be forgiven and it can be all that stuff, then maybe we're not displacing people that are there. I personally don't see CDBG money going away, but
I mean, I really studied that, and I've talked to the HUD office directly, and I mean, that's not something to worry about really at any time in the near future. I mean, anything can happen with the Fed, right? But it's really not.
Sure.
Shouldn't be our biggest concern.
Adam, would you help me with one thing? Looking down the sheet, under housing activities, emergency HQS rehab. What's HQS?
Housing quality standards.
Housing quality standards. What does that mean?
It's a kind of a HUD term that keeping housing to a certain standard, a certain livable.
What my wife wants and what's some
Keep a facility that's just, I mean, the bare minimum. This place is livable for the occupants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some low income, the foundation's falling apart. That's what that's for, fixing that foundation to keep
Yes.
them in that house.
So they can stay in it. Yeah.
Their roof is leaking and they need a, okay.
Mayor, I will be leaving here and going to Boise, so this will be the first topic I have when I can speak to Brady privately,
Okay.
so that we can continue to keep this moving. And I will present your concerns and the language. Where are they willing to be flexible?
Yeah.
My guess is that Brady did this as his template because he doesn't have the authority to waive it. But the tradition that he speaks of is when the board meets, they will do it. So for him to soften this, he will probably have to have a board action. Just a guess.
But instead of guessing, find out.
And I know that he said that their legal team is still in review of this. So I believe you're right, that this is the first line of negotiations, and but I will be talking to him.
Yeah, if you can find out. Just,
I will.
So, but I think if she's going there to negotiate, we need to be able to say whether or not, if they ultimately would waive this, should CDBG money go away, we will commit the CDBG money if they will hold us harmless if it goes away. I think that's what we're asking to be negotiated, is that we're ready to commit if they will waive that clause here.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm hearing today.
is that what he's hearing? I was just hearing to find out if that was negotiable and that we weren't committing anything.
Well, I don't know that they
at this point.
I don't know that they, if I were a board member, I wouldn't, on that level, I would not commit to waive something unless there was something tangible that was coming as a part of what we're doing. Because it gives signals to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think we have to be in a place to say that our commitment is for $350,000 of CDBG money with the proviso that it should CDBG money go away, that we want to be held harmless there.
Or maybe even a scale, a declining scale of how much. I think there's a lot of different
Well, he's already got the declining scale in here.
Okay.
As I read it, but because he says it can be extended up to 10 years, and so I see that in there. But what I'm saying is, if CDBG money were to be defunded, or if it were defunded to the point that we couldn't satisfy $350,000 based on the formula we have, $30,000 if it drops below 300,000, 25,000 if it drops to 250,000, if we're not able to fund it that way. But I think that's part of the negotiation, is we have something we're offering, but what are you offering in return? And I think, my gut is that his board will have to feel like they're negotiating some sort of reality rather than just theory. Because if they put it in writing to us, they're in a sense putting it in writing to everybody else they fund that way.
Maybe I could clarify one thing, because I want to make sure that you guys are okay with all this. One thing that they are saying here, the way I read it, is that you can go down to $30,000 if the CDBG levels drop, but not below 30. So it's 10% down. So if it's 250, then you can't go to 25. They're staying 30.
But that's what Adam was alluding
If you
to.
guys want to change that, then that's something we need to make sure BJ
Well, that's what I'm
asks.
saying. We need to make a commitment
So we need to add that to our list of things.
That's what I'm hearing in our back and forth.
Well, I haven't heard anybody commit CDBG money or anything yet.
I'm willing to commit it. I think we're putting $8,000 or so a year into it already, so it's a net of 42 rather than 50. I also think that we are the entity that uses it the most as a city. I think it's good use of CDBG money, and I don't think CDBG money is going to go away. So I'm ready to commit.
Well, I think that if they're not worried about it going away, then they won't have any issues with retracting that will not be forgiven for any reason. I mean, if they've got the commitment where, I mean, and BJ, you told us that they said that's the least of your concerns, not to worry about that. The CDBG is probably not going to go away. That they wouldn't have any reason why they would insist on that language being in there, quite frankly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, but now here's a question though. I've heard one person say that they would be willing to commit. I haven't heard anybody else say they'd be willing to commit. But here's a question I have. Though you need $500,000 to match this $500,000 they're going to give you, you get a $300,000 and $350,000 commitment from us, but you don't get the commitment from anybody else. What happens to that?
Let's say it all goes away?
Yeah, well, we give you the
the other
$350,000.
Yeah.
So, well, you would have $375,000 committed because Idaho Housing Housing Authority is committed. But say Bannock County backs out, Chubbuck doesn't do anything, your corporate sponsors don't do anything, and all of a sudden you don't have the $500,000 to match that. You're $125,000 short.
You will know before you have to make
Before we
a first
make any
payment.
commitments.
From what I'm hearing with Adam, it's not until there's occupancy. So I don't see that being a financial concern. We're not asking you to give us a check to buy the building. We need the commitment and the agreement that it would start after occupancy. So it'll happen. If it doesn't happen, we'll have to regroup. But I think that Bannock County is definitely going to provide support through because we help so much with the indigent services and the costs that are associated with housing someone that's homeless. We take care of that. So I'm not tremendously concerned. I'm optimistically excited about other funders that have had conversations with us, and not just for this project, but as ongoing support.
Okay. Rick, did you, or Linda, somebody had a question down there.
My question is just sort of clarification of what you were asking, or what I think you were asking, is that not as far as when we would be, on the hook, so to speak, for our first payment, but if all those other commitments were to go away, how would the project move forward, and would you come back and ask us for more, or is our 350 is set and not going to change no matter what anyone else can or cannot do?
That's what they say.
That is true.
Okay.
We're not going to come back and say, Bannock County decided there isn't a homeless issue in Bannock County.
Can you bump yours up to 450 or something
No,
like that?
that's not the intent of this.
Okay.
One last question. The trends are for more stringent governance of any kind of living facility. Do you think there may be a shelf life to the facility you're in right now? In other words, do you think being able to put people on mats on the floor that'll go away? Do you think that there's some safety issues that could come in? You're not sprinklered, are you?
We have a fire sprinkler system. Is that what you meant?
Upstairs too?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got that.
Okay.
It is an old facility, and it is a wooden facility. We use cots primarily. We don't use mats on the floor because that is a housing quality standard issue. But we're at a brink. It would be nice to have a dining area where everyone could really sit down and eat. Right now, the kitchen area is so small that people are eating, again, in the living room or taking their plate wherever they can. Those are the things that we need to take care of. And it is at a place where we have to do something, you know, and the pieces are falling together. I'm comfortable with the conversations we've had with our other funders, that they are, as you are, excited to see something new happen for our shelter. We've got the experience to move forward.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions real quick? All right. Drive safe.
Yes.
Be careful. Thank you for taking some time. We know that you're in a hurry to get to Boise, but don't speed.
And thank you for letting us be first on the agenda, because my rental car is waiting for me.
That's right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
Okay, we will move to agenda item number 3 as Golf Advisory Committee update. Representatives from the Golf Advisory Committee will discuss the committee's goals and projects as well as policies and expectations.
Thanks for the, John, thanks for the call.
Oh, the new golf house.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Thanks for giving us this time. My name's Larry Morton. I'm the current chair of the Golf Advisory Committee. Our members are Billy Satterfield, vice chair, Ginger Smith, High River Women's representative, Roger Musser, High River Men's representative, Thomas Little, and Greg Albright from 4 Golf. Additionally, 4 Golf is represented by Gerald Myler and Brian Sprague, who's our superintendent. I'd like to recognize long-term committee members Joyce Fleming and Ron Dunn, who have recently passed this last year, for their many years of committed service to the golf community. I'd also like to thank Councilman Bray. He's our city council liaison to our committee and has helped us extensively. Committee continues to be very active in its efforts to improve the appearance and condition of the golf courses and the quality of the golfing experience for the public, as well as to develop strategies to increase play at the courses. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank the mayor and council for your support this past and current fiscal year, particularly for your approval of appropriations for continued cart path repairs and replacements at courses, and for addressing water hammer issues at Riverside Golf Course. I'd like to say that we're privileged to have 2 really good municipal golf courses. Through the commitment of 4 Golf, the City Parks and Rec, and Director Banks, we've made a lot of improvements. Some of these in the past few years. Cart path renovations, we've cleaned all that up, and everything's looking good. That's all done. Highland Clubhouse has been repainted. New flooring in the clubhouses. Replacements of AC units at both clubhouses. extensive tree pruning at both golf courses as well as select tree removal. Needed plumbing and electrical repairs at both clubhouses. New restroom buildings at both clubhouses, drastically needed. New tee markers at both golf courses. As a play report for the past year, 2017 season, total rounds played were 51,368, down a little bit from 56,000 in 2016, 62,000 in 2015. Season pass holders accounted for approximately 70% of the total rounds played in 2017, 35,874 rounds. 2017 daily fee rounds accounted for about 30%, 15,494 rounds versus 79. Total passes are 747, down from 792 in 2016 and 842 in 2015. Year-to-date for 2018, unfortunately, golf courses' revenues are down about $40,000 versus the same period in 2017. We had a horrible spring weather-wise. Didn't excite people to come out and play in 50-mile-an-hour winds and cold weather. This is cause for concern, being that during the 2017 season, For Golf had approximately $70,000 net loss in operations. For Golf has hired a part-time marketing manager to work on advertising in an effort to increase play. Both courses also provide extensive support for high school as well as ISU golf teams for no cost. Practice and match play during the months of March and May yearly. We have Greg Albright and Gerald Myler from For Golf with us today to talk to you a little bit about some strategies that they're using to help increase play. Greg, Gerald, would you like to?
Sure. I'm Greg Albright with For Golf. A couple different things that we're doing. We have leagues for every segment. We have a Monday Seniors League that alternates between the two golf courses. We started that here just a couple years ago. We got roughly about 70 participants in that. Tuesdays, both in the morning and the evenings, we have a ladies league. For the ladies that are working during the day, they're playing in the evenings. We have a junior league program that just started at Riverside this past Tuesday, yesterday. We've got roughly about 80 kids in that. We just completed the one up at Highland here just a couple weeks ago. We had roughly about 120 kids in that one, so about 200 kids total. Wednesday nights, we've got a couples league. Thursday nights, we have a men's league. So we've covered pretty much everything. We have some dead time, so we're trying to utilize that dead time with some different promotions, where it's a 2-for-1, where one gentleman or lady is paying a green fee and a golf cart and getting a green fee free. Those are on our website, along with those different other activities that are taking place, and that's at PocatelloGolfCourses.com. We also started another thing on the weekends. And for the month of July, it's a family golf day. So we don't want to limit people because of price not being able to play. So we want to utilize that dead time. So we have an adult 9-hole green fee and we have a junior 9-hole green fee, and they're roughly about half the price. So for the month of July, it's going to be out of Riverside, and then I believe the month of August, it's up at Highland. And that's on selective Saturdays and Sundays. So,
Do you also rent clubs?
we do rent golf clubs. We provide golf lessons. I provide clinics. I work with a group of ladies on every Wednesday from 11 to 12 and 12 to 1, and I'll get roughly 30 to 40 ladies that come out, and I just provide a lesson for $5. Go out there and give them some instruction. I came up with a discounted rate so that I can encourage them and get them out on the golf course. So we have a cheap rate to go play 4 holes. As for some of the newcomers, 4 holes is going to be it's going to be enough. And I don't want them to be discouraged by going out there and feeling like you got to come out there and play 9 holes and, thinking, man, this is a long day. This is a lot of shots. This is a little bit too much for me. So we've tried to create different things. We also do night golf. We'll host a couple night golf tournaments, and those are a lot of fun. So we're trying to experiment with different things, anything we can do.
That night golf, do you lose a lot of golf balls?
No,
you got to be pretty solid there, right?
This is fun.
That's right.
The golf balls are illuminated. The holes, they put glow sticks around the greens, on the flag sticks, in the hole. It's like colored shooting stars, I think is what Greg said.
It is.
Balls flying everywhere. So they're pretty easy to find.
And it's kind of a unique solution to the problem we have with afternoon golf this time of year. Because when it's 95 degrees, there's not a lot of people that want to go carry a golf bag around a golf course. So if we can wait a few hours, start a little league or a tournament, have them playing at 9 o'clock at night for 75-degree temperature, makes some sense.
When do you do that? When is that?
When we do it?
The night golf.
I'll get you the dates. We have any of the activities we got going on. We try to post them on our website, and then we also have them in the golf shops. So anybody can call me to the golf shops, and we have flyers put up with dates, times, cost.
I often feel like I need a beacon anyway on my golf ball to find it, and so this will help if it's lit up. That'll be nice. So I like the idea.
You're not the only one there.
We did have, and council, as you know, Gerald and Greg gave us some cards to get some other people out to golf that hasn't golfed, and so I'd encourage you to use those as well as every chance you get.
Yeah, the other thing we'd like to do is, through John, is get the council out to one of the courses one of these days. Have a meal, let us tell you about the courses, let us show you around in the carts. Even if you're brave enough, take a half hour, 45-minute lesson from Greg. Convert you guys to golfers as well.
We could show you some of those capital expenditures that we've done, some of the course bathrooms.
That'd be a good idea.
Some of those other things.
Yeah, that's right.
And those passes that we gave to you, we also did that with all of our pass holders. So we tried to encourage them to bring somebody who maybe played in the past or hasn't played for some time, to bring them out for a free round of golf. Hopefully that would encourage them to think, hey, this is kind of fun. And then we come out and play a little bit more.
Yeah. One of the other things we're doing that we think has some promise is there's always companies, corporations that are looking for employee events. And we can offer a really nice employee event. We've actually done a few of these where we'll bring a group of 20, 30 and we'll charge them a very minimal price for dinner and for a lesson, and then they go out and play a 3 or 4 hole scramble. And it just kind of introduces them to the game, and it's a nice employee recognition event. So I'm with KeyBank in my other life, and we've done it a number of times. We've also done it with scout groups and church groups, and we've asked the mayor if he'll help us open some doors for some of the bigger companies in town to try that concept on.
Future golf needs, course needs. Our committee is aware the city continues to face budget challenges with many competing needs and services. There are requests for capital funding for the Golf Fund budget in the amount of $35,000 for continued cart path renovations, replacements, and reroutings, and funding in the amount of $25,000 to begin saving and accumulating resources for replacement of the Riverside Clubhouse, which is the most pressing current need at the golf courses. And that's a big one. Billy Satterfield's with us today. He's been doing some research and getting some figures. You have an overview in your packet of what this clubhouse might look like. It's on the board also. Billy, do you want to go ahead and...
Sure, just give you a little bit of history, my understanding is that the current clubhouse out at Riverside is about 80 years old. It's a barn that was out on the property, and it was kind of converted to be used as a clubhouse. And it's never really built with that intention, but tried to make it work for a long time. And the challenge is it's kind of past its useful life at this point. In fact, the foundation's starting to sink over on the, what would that be, the southeast corner of it. In fact, there's a window that's popped out that because of the settling stuff that's gone on there, the door, you can't put a straight hinge in. It's got to be a bent hinge to get it to sit in there. So the building itself is not structurally sound at this point, and we're just kind of limping along, and so we got to have a plan in place to replace it. And the needs of a clubhouse, or it needs to facilitate retail space for pro shops, be able to sell shoes and clubs and clothing and gear and stuff. Space to store things. There's a variety of things, whether it's rental clubs or merchandise or a variety of things, food and beverage stuff. More dining facilities, bathroom facilities and stuff, and the size that they have right now isn't really that sufficient. And one of the things I put in the package, there's a reason that places, franchises and stuff, require their real estate to be rehabbed and stuff like that every certain number of years, because it attracts more clientele. It gives a better first impression to the property and whatnot. I mean, we're seeing it right now at McDonald's down there by ISU, just to level the whole building and rebuild it and stuff, because they know they're going to sell a lot more hamburgers with a nicer facility. And so there's a guy by the name of J. Paul Geyer. He's a graduate of Stanford. He's an architect. He's a civil engineer. He's a mechanical engineer. He's got about 35 years of experience with building buildings and stuff. And he wrote a 65-page document on clubhouses and researched it all and everything like that. And I tried to give you a little bit of the Reader's Digest version of it, but in the analysis, he talks about there being small clubhouses, medium and large, and a small one's about 5,000 feet, medium about 8,000, larger 11,000 plus. And then this proposal we did, it's only a 3,600 square foot, so it's even smaller than what would be small by industry standards. So we're not trying to put some big lavish building out there. We're just trying to get something that's not going to keep sinking ultimately.
Billy, is it too small though? I mean, if we're going to look at maybe expansion in the future, I mean, we're building it too small where we're going to have to come back and add on to it in the next 15 years.
And there's no doubt that a larger facility would help facilitate more functions, Getting it just to this would be a nice step. And I guess some of it depends on what you want to use a clubhouse for. There's a lot of golf courses across the country that use them for weddings and different things like that. To do that, you're going to have a whole lot more dining to handle that. The trade-off becomes, do you build an 8,000 square foot facility and we're only using 4,000 of it the vast majority of the time, but we're paying for the rest of the time. And so kind of the goal from the golf course aspect was, if we got this, it would be sufficient to handle the golfing needs and some other events, but not big time events.
Can this design be easily expanded rather than just having to start over once this isn't enough?
One of the things that we discussed as a committee is the setting at Highland Golf Course, which that clubhouse eventually will need to be replaced also. The setting there is better actually for a large use kind of facility where you could have community events or host weddings or any kind of function. The setting at Riverside, we were down in the valley, and it's a beautiful view out the gap and of the golf course, but it's kind of limited as to aesthetics. So one of the reasons we went with the smaller design was to accommodate the needs of the golf community, as well as to put a better face on things. We're looking at a barn that still has hay in the loft. it's not really very attractive when you bring new businesses to town to show them your recreational facilities. So
I think one of the challenges with the Riverside location versus Highland is we got limited parking at Riverside already. In fact, I think the city pays to lease that ground next to the gas station across the street, because by the time if you fill up the golf course, there's not enough parking, so they have to park across the street and stuff. So if we start putting in too big of a facility at Riverside, we simply aren't going to be able to handle the cars and stuff there, whereas Highland's much more set up to handle that in the future.
And I think it's wise to just look at the golfing end of it anyway. I was just asking the question. I'm not saying build a 8,000-foot building. I think it's wise to look at the purpose of it is a clubhouse for the golfers and so.
one of the other things in this design is underground parking for the rental carts, which opens some area up for some more area for parking.
Because they're stored outside right now.
Okay.
So I had a couple, 2 or 3 different contractors over the winter that I sent them, and this drawing is just a basic one that we got from the architect of a possible facility that could be done. And so they weren't given like a full set of plans yet, but all 3 of them all came in with a number of around $750,000 to build that facility. And there's some things that they don't know. They're saying, we got to do something temporary in between, or can this basically be done over the winter when they don't need the shop open, or what? Some of those figures we don't know, but that's a pretty good ballpark number of what it's going to take to build that facility and make that happen. And so, we like the golf courses have been a revenue producing item for the city, which is nice. May not know the history behind the golf courses, but the city used to run them, and at one point they used to lease out the golf courses for $1 because they would rather bring in $1 than lose the money they were doing. And at this point, between what 4Golf pays on a lease to the city, the portion of revenue that the city gets, and then what the city collects from the water usage and stuff, it comes in over about $300,000 a year that is money to the city. And so ultimately we like to keep investing into that facility so that it can, a lot of the city facilities, particularly Parks and Rec, are going to be negative on the balance sheet, and this is one that can actually help produce things and carry other ones along. And so, but to do that, it's going to take some investment to keep it being a revenue producing facility for us. So.
I presume your trips around the world have been researched?
That's right. Yeah, I've been to almost 700 different golf courses around the world.
I'd like to answer that question that you had earlier about why Riverside's small and not making it big in the whole 9 yards, that direction. And Roger's been nice enough to sit on our committee meetings with us. And John and the 4Golf reps have been there. And it was, as we looked at the situation over, basically what we have at Riverside is a golf course. We don't have really any amenities there other than a golf course. Yet down the road, if the city council wishes to expand on that, Highland is next to all the facilities, hotels, motels. It's got convention center, it's got community center, it's got a walking area, it's got, all those things. And it's got the view and the parking. And that's kind of why, as a golf committee, and Roger understands this, I would hope the council does it, if there was to be that bigger complex done down the road, you get one done, and then later, when the advantage are seen, do the second one, then you're looking at putting in a facility where it's accessible to all those different businesses and that to come up right away and be able to function with them.
So we've come up with a couple ideas for funding. One being a portion of the yearly revenues that come in from the golf courses set aside. The idea there is the golfers will benefit from a new clubhouse. The golfers are helping to pay for it. We do take in money every year for improvements, and the city's been kind enough to disperse some of that money back to us, so we've been able to do some things. budgeted resources not expended in the yearly golf budget be placed into that same account. So we're talking about developing a dedicated account where we can start putting money, setting aside money. The city can set aside money. We can do fundraisers. We're looking at possibilities for sponsorships. We're looking at any way we can to raise money. The longer we wait, the more it will cost. That $750,000 mark will go up every year, as you know. That's what construction does. So we're looking at funding sources, but we're also looking at other opportunities. In the table that you were given at the start of the meeting, the revenues and expenditures, the golf course fund over the past 5 years, as you can see from the table, has contributed nearly $420,000 to the recreation fund. We are a positive asset to the city. It's certainly not the budget of the Parks and Rec fund, but it's a substantive contribution to Parks and Rec. So the golf courses are an asset to the city. They bring in money, but they also provide recreational opportunities and put a face on those possibilities. We've got a lot of recreational opportunities in this area. Golf courses being one. New companies come to town, they want to know what you've got for their employees. Take them out and show them the old barn. It's not that attractive. It can be. The golf courses are really, really good. The facilities that we use are outdated, and we've outgrown them. In conclusion, Golf Advisory Committee considers golf courses significant assets in the city, and believe they provide quality recreation and have very positive economic impact overall in Parks Rec Department. On behalf of myself and committee members, I would again like to thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for your support of golf in Pocatello. We have 2 great courses. City staff for golf care deeply about the courses and the golfers who use them. Any questions that we might answer?
Council, any questions? I just might add that the golf courses do look great. I'm getting compliments all the time. You know, it's
They're in as good a shape as I've ever seen them in the 40 years plus that I've played golf here.
And I'm hearing that consistently throughout the community, so thank you. You're doing a great job. It really, it's good. In fact, we're out there at a golf scramble, some fundraising last Saturday, and I heard that all day long, is how good the courses are looking, and so it's good. So thank you for what you're doing there. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I make just a couple of comments? Just so council's aware, we did, and Larry had mentioned, we did ask for $25,000 in fiscal 19 to kind of start a fund for clubhouse replacements. If the council could consider maybe a portion, over the last 5 years, it's just over $470,000 that the golf courses have contributed to the rec fund. Maybe consider a portion of that to kind of get the pot going. I continue to have pretty high hopes on being able to secure a substantial partnership donation from either an individual or maybe one of the city businesses for naming rights possibly. The zoo superintendent and I are actually in negotiations with one of the local banks about a sponsorship out at the zoo, and it's looking pretty promising. So I feel like those opportunities are there. If the city can maybe start developing a fund and then meet halfway with a sponsor, we could get this done sooner rather than later. So.
Sounds good. Okay.
I would go as far as to say, if the golf committee could raise a substantial amount of money by the time we come to budgeting next year, that you would be putting an onus on us to try to figure out how we have a compensatory response.
What is Satterfield on the building worth?
It's worth
That's where we do the Highland Golf Course clubhouse.
It's worth about $750,000.
Everything's in a name.
Loot on the hill we built.
Well, let's just double it up, and we can get a fund for the one on the hill they built too. So there you go.
I was thinking maybe the Idaho Dairyman would like to do something with Riverside, you know? That's an old dairy farm.
It's an old dairy farm.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the U of I experimental place? Or
It was the
University
U
of
of I's
Idaho.
agriculture experimental station when this was University of Idaho Southern Branch in 1951. I think they left and came use. And they also expanded the railroad yards at that same time. So what used to be the UP's 9-hole golf course got changed into a 6-hole golf course. And then the university donated it to the railroad. The railroad then extended it to a golf course and then donated it to the city.
I had never heard that history. That's great.
Never heard of it.
Fact.
And the barn was moved onto the property.
Yeah, the barn was down over the hill.
Really?
Yeah, that was they had milking barns, so they had to get it up to build the golf course. They moved it up on the hill.
So approximately where was the barn located before?
If you look on the old map sightings and everything, where the old road used to come in and go over the overpass.
Okay.
Okay, right just short of the overpass, not overpass, where the river used to be. That, if you're familiar with Riverside, what is that, 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, 18 T-box there.
Okay.
It was just south of that by about 200 feet.
Great.
So we moved the barn, but we didn't take the hay out.
You only get so much for the barn.
Yeah, they put it up on the hill, and what's amazing about it, and this needs to be explained, and Billy slipped on that, is that window that popped out is 12 by 12. If it had come out while somebody was there, it could have really caused trouble because the whole corner of the building's dropping out of sight.
Yeah.
Which damages the plumbing, the electrical, and it's an infrastructure problem.
Sure.
But the hay's holding up fine.
Hay's good, all right.
Might be what's holding the building together.
That's right. That's right. Don't take it out now.
So please come
super.
Have lunch with us and take a look at Riverside.
Let's figure a time and make sure we do that.
We'll do that. Thank you very much. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Council, I forgot to mention I was supposed to do this after the last agenda item. Item number 7 has been pulled. We're not ready for it to be discussed at this time. So item number 7 has been pulled. We'll move on to agenda item 4, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board update. Representatives from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board will discuss the board's goals and projects as well as council's policies and expectations.
So I don't have to stay
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you set for us?
We're ready.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Milder. I'm the outgoing chair of the City Park and Recreation Advisory Board. I'm pleased to be here to present the board's annual report. I want to say this is bittersweet for me. It's hi and goodbye the same day here. It's I've been turned out, and Ann says I can't stay any longer. Is that what you said, Brent?
I'm not completing the fifth on that one. I've got to work for it. You got to go. You remember the hi and goodbye part of this. I got to stay.
Oh. Well, I want to introduce our board members. Some are here. Our board members, incoming Chairman Frederick Belzer, here to my right, Vice Chair David Doran, Judy Taylor, Kay Corbridge, Larry Morton, Darren Black, Bart Reed, Dakota Bates, and newly appointed member Jeffrey Angelo. I also express thanks to outgoing board member Daniel Parrish, council member Heidi Adamson for their involvement and support of the board liaison for this past year. And excuse me if it looks like I'm just reading this stuff, because I actually am. We've done so dang much. It's hard to keep it in my head here. So I got plenty of notes, little handwritten notes here too. Park and Recreation Board meets 6 times a year, February, April, June, August, October, so that's basically every other month, held on the first Thursday of these months at the Community Recreation Center. Attendance at our meetings has been excellent with very few member absences. This past year, we had the opportunity to welcome back 5 existing and reappointed members, and those were some of the members I just mentioned: Judy Taylor, Darren Black, Larry Morton, Kate Corbridge, and of course Fred Belzer is our new chair. Some of the key issues and projects that the board has been involved in and provided input on since their annual presentation to the council in June 2017. Pocatello Regional Transit Partnerships with the Parks and Recreation Department, implementation of the Summer Dees route services to Lower Ross Park, and the exploration of bus wraps for department branding and logos. City City Code revision recommendations regarding dogs on golf courses in the Animal Services section of the code. And if you follow me, these aren't being read in a list of importance, but just I think as they were thought of and put on the list here. Portneuf Greenways Farm Bureau to Monte Vista Overpass Trail project currently being constructed. If people have seen that construction going on to the east side of I-15. I've seen that every day when I drive that way. Portneuf River visioning process. We've had several presentations on that and given input. Parks vending concessions proposal, vending at Alameda and Raymond Parks. So that's just soda vending? Yeah, right. Quarterly Parks and Recreation budget and cost recovery reports, as well as annual service level reports, proposed departmental fee resolutions, review of annual facility use and concessions agreements, consideration of city golf course operation issues as they arise. And then this past year, I mentioned to John, we didn't have on the list, we installed 2 disc golf courses at the Nordic Center. And those were public-private funded projects from the Sunrise Lions Club and Portneuf Health Trust. And I've heard those are very popular. It gives us a chance to use the Nordic Center during the warm months. And I know they have weddings out there and such. So it's turning in the Nordic Center into a year-round facility. Also, I want to make you aware that the board is kept well informed of all program services and activities the Park and Recreation Department has provided to the community for the past 2 months. We meet every other month through comprehensive director's reports, which continue to indicate high levels of participation in city recreational programs. Another thing I wrote in here is the Reflection Garden at Caldwell Park. That might have been on last year's report, but it wasn't finished until this past November. I mean, it's people seen the Reflection Garden there on the corner, remove those trees, and yeah, past November we opened it up, turned on the fountain, we turned it on and winterized it the same day, I think. But I've heard good things about it. Lastly, the most significant project the board was very involved with throughout all of last year was the development of a comprehensive Parks and Rec Department facility use and programs policy document. This is to include all rules and regulations, city code, and standard legal department use agreement language. The goal of this was to streamline facility use reservation system for park users, staff, and where P&R department staff can approve and administratively issue facility use permits with reference all terms and conditions of the facility use policy document. Well, that's one long sentence there, John. This document currently has a completed draft from the Park and Recreation Board, and it has actually been reviewed and awaiting a meeting with John, and then it will be presented at the next earliest opportunity to the City Council for consideration. Board priorities for the upcoming year. Work with Park and Recreation Department staff to maintain increased levels of participation and community satisfaction with services and programs provided. Continue to work with staff to implement new programming opportunities and revenue sources within the existing park system and staffing structure with the goal of helping to increase cost recovery levels this past year, some of the new programs we offered were the Thor Mountain Obstacle Race was that at the Nordic Center?
It was.
Yes. Did you have to play disc golf while you did that?
No.
No, you didn't have to. Well, that's something to add. The Lazy River Resistance walking classes at the Ross Park Aquatic Center, and those were hugely popular. Zoo Idaho Community Free Day. Also work with staff to continue building and rebuilding positive fund balances in all divisions. And then something John and I just talked about, revisiting the Ross Park Master Plan for completion and eventual presentation to the council. Ross Park Master Plan is worked on by myself, Jerry Sepich, and others. It now needs to be revised because the first Ross Park Master Plan really hinged on moving 2nd Street. And that was a huge dollar amount, and nothing really else could be done in that master plan until 2nd Street was relocated back by the tracks. And now that's not as high a priority because 2nd Street is very lightly used. And so I think the master plan as revised will show that 2nd Street is still going through there. 2nd Street, of course, at one time was a real hazard for people crossing it between the zoo area, picnic areas, and the pool areas, and parking along the street. So I think some things can go forward in Lower Ross Park now that we don't have to consider the relocation of the road. Any questions? I mean, I feel like I'm just rambling here.
Remind me how self-sufficient are our parks? Is it like, do we sustain ourselves 70% or?
Well, John can give you the cost recovery figures.
On our recreation department, including the golf course revenue, we just surpassed the 70% cost recovery level for fiscal 17 now. That's it's pretty good, and you got to kind of have good years in the summer and good snow years, and the stars kind of have to align. But we shoot for that every year. We may not quite get there every year, but we did cost recover at just above 70% for fiscal 17. The Parks Department itself does not anywhere near cost recover, just with the rentals of the picnic facilities and sports facilities. Maybe, I don't know, less than 5%, but it's the recreation department that's really doing the cost recovery.
Thank you.
So Jim, you asked me about the future of recreation in the city. I'll just ahead of you there because I know you ask me that every year. Yes. This I wrote myself. This is pre-printed from John. These are my rambling thoughts, if you really want them. I think the number one issue, I don't see anybody left here from Golf Advisory Committee, is to solve the issue with golf. Really see it. Do you know that the number of rounds of municipal courses are decreasing across the country? It's not just here. And to disagree with them, it's not just bad weather. It's our younger generation aren't playing golf as much. They're not playing tennis as much either. It's I just don't think they have the attention span for a 4-hour activity. I hate to say that, but I see that in what our college students are doing at the university level. Longer programs that we have, leagues and such for college students. Sometimes there are fewer participants. I think we have to do what we can to shore that up. I agree with them that the golf courses are an asset to the city. And, some people don't want to live in a community that doesn't have golf courses. I mean, they're not for everybody, but they're a real benefit for people moving to your city. It's tough for them to get up here and ask for new clubhouses when rounds of golf are decreasing. That's a tough one. But I think if you're committed to maintaining golf in the city, I don't believe clubhouses increase rounds of golf. I think there's two different issues. We have old clubhouses and we have decreased rounds of golf. I don't think a new clubhouse is going to substantially increase the rounds of golf. Rounds of golf have to be increased by keeping prices reasonable, getting younger people to play. It doesn't hurt to have, for the promotion of our courses to have newer clubhouses, yes. And I think we have to continue to invest in our infrastructure at these courses. We can't just let them, if we're committed to golf. If you close a course, I can tell you, you'll never open a course again. Keep that in mind. You'll never open a course again. You'll sell that land off, and there'll be new homes. Jim will be selling, and you won't have another golf course.
I know.
Because that's happened in other communities.
Sure.
And other communities have taken golf courses and done other things. They play this game where you kick a soccer ball into a pit next to the green, and it's soccer golf. And they set up disc golf courses right down the same fairways as ball golf, they call it. They're disc golf and ball golf. So they've done things to use their courses in different ways. I think we need to satisfy the needs and profits of the concessionaires. That may require the city to take less profit from the courses or rewrite their contracts. There's no way the city wants to go back and run those courses themselves. And you can't keep a concessionaire in there if they're losing money. We all know that. So that's my little bit on the golf courses. I think the city needs to continue to improve their parks and their zoos. I think that's the real shining star in the recreation picture for the city. Eventually, they're going to have to look at upgrades to the aquatic center and the community recreation center. They're both aging facilities. I can't believe I was there as a chair of the Park and Rec Board when we cut the ribbon on the pool, and that was 22 years ago. So, there's going to be some needs out there to make some changes to upgrade some of the things at the aquatic center in the future. And the Community Recreation Center, it is an old building, and they've done wonderful things there to spruce it up and look good. But someday you might have to consider expanding to the north side of that over the parking lot and put in some court spaces into the little park that's just north there along the tracks. That might be something that I don't know that we can completely leave that facility, but we may have to do something to expand it and make it a little bit more usable for our programs. Increase memberships at the Community Recreation Center. We need to continue to pursue public-private funded projects, and that might be some of the answers, like you alluded to some of the issues of costs at golf courses. Sorry if
You're giving us some real insight here, Doug.
Well, I've been in business a lot of years, Jim.
Well, has the committee offered written suggestions, or have you given some thought to offering us written suggestions of timeline for doing various things so that we can have the superior program that I think already exists, but into the future?
With the new fiscal 19 5-year capital plan, I think that's exactly what we're doing. This was kind of the first year for bringing forward some of those kind of needed infrastructure improvements, mainly starting with the Ross, like Doug said, it is an aging facility out at Ross Park, and some of the resurfacing of the pool areas and kind of off into the horizon, a replacement of that water slide over there. It's safe, it's functional. We still get very good participation out there at that facility, and as a Parks and Recreation staff, and I think as a advisory board, we understand the budget challenges. I think the onus is on myself, the Ross Park manager, Stacy Van Kirk, to beat the bushes and go out and find grant funding, find donations for possible naming rights of the slide and these types of things. I don't feel like it's realistic to expect the city to come up with these, $500,000-$700,000 expenditures, over the next several years for aging infrastructure. I feel like we need to do all we can to go out and find money, and then maybe the city has a small match or something. So that's our plan. I understand that. I think the staff is very clear on that. And we don't have an expectation that the city and tax funds are going to be able to fund these major amenities. We need to do our part as well. But through the 5-year capital process, I think that will be the vehicle for bringing forward these suggestions.
Good. Thank you. We've heard this morning about drop in participation at the golf course. What about the community rec center and the aquatic center? Are those up or down?
The community rec center has had really good years the last couple of years. We are just really, really busy and popular at the community rec center. The Ross Park Center is a little weather dependent, depending on if you get a bunch of stormy days during a year, it could have a major impact, but remains in the mid to high 50,000 participation per year. That's pretty darn successful. So even with kind of the aging infrastructure, we continue to be a significant draw. And I've got a lot of different ideas on kind of long-term concession strategy and working with the Ross Park Drive-In, which I'm going to be bringing forward to council at a later date. But I just see brighter and brighter things for both of those facilities if we can go out and get creative and find some grant funding to expand facilities and improve facilities. Heidi had a great idea. Her and I were having a discussion about the community rec center, and we have that kind of open area between the racquetball courts and the locker room that used to be some type of climbing apparatus outdoor. If we, at some point, and it's a good amount of space, were to seal that up, maybe move the weight room over, that might allow us to expand the pool area, which is, we can't have enough indoor pool space. It's packed all the time. So, kind of having creative ideas like that and going out, like I say, and beating the bushes and finding the funding to do it. But the short answer is I think both of those facilities remain tremendously popular for the community, and they cost recover really well.
Keep in mind, outdoor aquatic centers in this type of climate, they call them 100-day pools because you have about 100 days to make your money. Most of them run in the red. Very few communities, John knows that run outdoor seasonal pools run in the black. So if you get close to it, you're doing good. That's for sure.
Super. Any other questions?
Well, then, on behalf of the Park and Recreation Board, department staff, I'd like to thank Mayor Blatt, council members for continued strong support of the Park and Recreation Department. We're very appreciative of the council's continued commitments that Park and Recreation has been able to accomplish what it has this past year, providing valuable services to the program's community. The advisory board and staff will continue to work together under Fred's help closely to provide outstanding parks and recreation programs and services, and always strive to help Pocatello play off and live better. And just closing, I just want to say John has done an excellent job. He's a very knowledgeable director, and I've enjoyed his friendship.
Thanks, Doug. And just a real quick public acknowledgement to Doug for his decades of service on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. As a new director, I really appreciated Doug and his steady hand and kind of helping me to acclimate to the city and the department and kind of steering us through some really important issues and providing good input, and particularly bringing this comprehensive policy document forward with Doug's steady hand. So thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you.
And I know I'm not the only one. I hope you take a couple of years off and consider coming back, because we're going to miss you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Eric.
Sounds great. Thank you. I feel like we're letting one of our founding members of the Parks Advisory Board go. So
go back to Mayor Angstad. That's where we started.
It's quite a while. So yes, thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you,
Fred. You've got some big shoes to fill.
I have size 13. So.
Apparently, in 22 years, you'll be able to sit there and do what he just did.
Yeah, I realize the challenge.
Anyway, thank you very much for all that you do. Appreciate it.
We take a short break before.
Why don't we, before we go to agenda item number 5, let's go ahead and take a quick break then. Good. Good morning, and thank you for joining us after the break. We appreciate that. I'm also, Council, going to pull agenda item number 8. I am going to need to leave a little bit early, and so I would like to be in the middle of that discussion if that discussion actually ever happens. We've pulled it twice now, and it's probably not a big
It must not be that important.
It's not really that important, but it's something that we ought to talk about eventually sometime. But with that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5 is Bannock Development Corporation update. John Regetz, Bannock Development Corporation, BDC Executive Director, will be present to give council an update of BDC's activities and achievements. John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members, for giving me a few more minutes this quarter to kind of give you an update on some of the things that are going on in the world of economic development. As always, we appreciate your continued support and participation in economic development projects and funding. And you've seen some of the shows that we participate in. We've completed all our trade shows and conferences this year. We've talked to you about a lot of these before. We'll point out that the first 4 of them actually were completed in the first quarter of the year, and the Select USA was just done week before last. So it's always a very busy time of the year during the first quarter. And these shows cover the gamut of looking at outdoor recreation companies, which is the SHOT Show, which we do have an appeal to, and ultimately they convert to manufacturing. So we always work with some of the leads that we get from that. We always get about 4 to 6 good ones, and in fact, all of these shows usually 4 to 6 solid leads we get out of every show, out of a dozen contacts that we have that we follow up on. Site Selectors Guild, we meet with the national site selectors that are the most highly rated in the nation, and they've formed this organization to interact with organizations like ours. Computer electronics, this was geared towards CEOs. We visited with actual chairmen of the boards, chairmen or chief executive officers, operating officers. That was the mix, and so that's why we went to that. And we went with Buchanan and Edwards, who is generous enough to give us some insight and give us some guidance on that. And then on the way back from that, we participated in the Silicon Slopes trade show, which is down in Salt Lake City. And that's all the high-tech companies that lead that community down there and try to make some inroads there. And we've got a couple of good prospects on that. And then Select USA, of course, is foreign companies that are looking at the United States to set up businesses. We do that, in collaboration with Commerce and Ready, Southern Idaho, and Idaho Power Go as well. And so we try to get out there and see what foreign companies would be willing to locate in the state of Idaho, or maybe other semi-rural states. It's kind of a long shot, but we do this in collaboration to help support the other partners as well. The format for that is going to change next year, and so there'll be some actual shows held in western states. Salt Lake City is one we'll definitely participate in, maybe the one in Denver. That actually peels back a layer of that site selection onion. If companies are going to come to the western states, come to states in our region, then they've already demonstrated some interest, hopefully a good bit of research into looking at our part of the country. But from our completed marketing efforts, we've already had 5 site visits. We're already scheduling another one of those. About 18, 20 direct leads that we've gotten. And the mix basically comes, I think we've had one mix with Ready that's contacted them, contacted us, and then we've had probably about 6 or 7 through Commerce. So we're on, and the rest have all been direct or through our trade shows. So we're ahead of track, or ahead of schedule on last year's pace, which has been the best that we've been had in this regard since we've been tracking that. we've talked about a lot of the other different kinds of marketing, different areas that we look at, advanced manufacturing, high-tech, finance and insurance, mining, minerals production, pharmaceuticals, packaging. Also, we do retention expansion, but one thing we've been working on is been talking with the Realtor for Northgate Marketing's commercial and industrial marketing and sales, and so we've been working with them to determine what some of the markets that we want to target for Pocatello are, and then some of the talent development that's available, but also the themes, the other attraction points that they need. It's been tuned into the talent base that occurs between Rexburg and South Jordan, which is a great talent pool with regards to college graduates. But there's other things, like our university, like the interstate system that's here, as well as the other companies that have established a talent base and an expertise here that demonstrates we can support other IT type companies, other high-tech manufacturing companies. So we're working with them to develop that. Got 10 committees now that we're working with from our board. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of those coming up here, but keeps us very busy. I guess I'd mention one of those. We're going to be doing some housing analysis because we've got companies that are expanding here and locating here. Just visited with Eaton Metals yesterday. They've ramped back up, but they've got a couple other positions that they're going to fill in the future, 2 or 3. SME's been expanding on Semiconductor, and Amy's, Great Western Malting, Western States CAT, the FBI, Allstate. These companies are growing, and we've had a shortage of houses available, and so we want to make sure that we know in the mix of what's coming up, what's in the pipeline, what's going to be the need. Based on the expansions that we're seeing, are there any particular problems or shortfalls in filling those needs? One thing we've heard about is, construction labor, and we've been working to help address that with the College of Technology, with the Department of Labor, and actually the folks at Northgate Development by starting up the Start School project. One of the things that's kind of revolved out of that is the school district would like to set up a program where they are doing sheds that employ all the different disciplines of home construction, whether it's electrical, framing, plumbing. All those things get done in the shed, and they like to set it up in a warehouse, and then when they're all done building it and everybody's got their hands-on experience, they tear it down, start all over again. Likewise, the College of Technologies responded by reinstituting or looking at reinstituting basically their home construction, model home construction project, where they construct a home with students that are in the construction field. And this all builds on what the school district and the College of Technology and Home Depot did with their construction combine. And I think they located or identified 60 potential workers that various companies wanted to hire in the construction field. So a lot of effort going on. The construction combine is immediate impact. The school district's project would be a pretty immediate impact as well. So but maybe there's other areas where we can help by maybe trying to get other developers. Maybe there's other contractors that we need to find to bring into the area or help those that are here get better established. So we'll try to figure out solutions to that as well. So that's just one of our 10 committees. It was 8 before Tuesday. Now it's 10. We created a couple. But some of our leading prospects, good news, because of our collaboration with Pocatello Development Authority Energy, which makes battery backup systems, power systems for homes, all the way down to your backpack to keep your cell phone charged or whatever, or your GPS if you're out recreating. And they've set up a location just next door here, next to Express Employment, where they're going to be incubating and start producing their next generation of solar generated power backup systems, or battery powered backup systems. And I'll give you all the
Here, John, why don't you hand it to me and I'll just distribute it. That way you can continue the...
We got all the documents there, an invitation on file too. So those both around. And so they've also put out a news release as well of some efforts that they've been making to take their products and their battery backup systems that are solar powered to the third world, specifically Puerto Rico in this instance because they've suffered from a hurricane. But they also look at other areas, like South Africa and other very remote areas that do not have power. And so other, emergency and critical infrastructure like medical equipment power is attempted to be met by utilizing these systems. And so having worked with other solar generation systems, portable ones, this is always an objective of theirs, and these folks are stepping up to the plate and helping to meet that with some of their innovations and some of their equipment. So good news for us, it makes us look like a high-tech progressive community, which we are. And so we really appreciate the collaboration that we've got with Energy and with the Pocatello Development Authority. So anyways, they're going to be generating 10 jobs on top of the 20 they've got in the next year through that collaboration and that location for incubation. And so we look forward to those positions and the wages they pay, $30,000 to $50,000 a year. Some of the other hot prospects that we've got right now, we have a transfer station that's looking at a couple of sites, actually about 3 or 4 sites in the community. They're going to need rail service. And so they've got a couple locations in Pocatello that they really like, and that should generate about 16 jobs and about $65,000 a year. And so this is, again, that value of logistics. We're starting to see that with the economy rebounding. We're going to see more logistics interest in our community, in addition to manufacturers who also see that logistical solution and position. Bless you. Thank you. Also, we have a firearms manufacturer at 15 jobs. I'm going to guess the wages are in the $15 to $20 an hour range. Again, recreation technology translates into advanced manufacturing, and a lot of these would be machining and assembly type jobs. Our warehouse jobs, we actually have an invitation for an open house we have coming up for that. They're looking at 60 jobs, up to 120 jobs during the busy season. And those typically pay $15 an hour in that market, and then you also have overtime and some benefits. So we're looking forward to that, and looking forward to hearing from them coming up here on the 23rd of July out at the airport, and you're all very welcome to attend. Also,
be at the airport in the conference room?
Actually, I think we'll have it up on the second floor. It'll either be in the conference room or up on the second level in that meeting area, because we have to gauge that based upon the participation that we're going to see there. So also we have a data center with some support services included. We need to kind of determine what those wages are going to be, but we typically see somewhere in the $40,000 a year range for some of those technicians and some of those professionals. It's kind of right now it's a real estate situation where we have a building where somebody's already in it. They might be interested in moving out of it, and the other company could locate in there and utilize that space. So we'll determine where their capital investment plans end up, because it all depends on money. So we'll keep working with those folks as well.
John, we hear lots of discussion in terms of what's coming to Northgate. People want to know when are we going to have some announcements on those companies. Can you shed any light on that?
That's pretty much in Northgate's hands as far as the companies that are looking at coming there now. I mean, we'll try to market and get some other companies that might want to locate there as well. But pretty much it's going to be in their hands at this point, because they've done the upfront marketing as developers. Yeah, we're just kind of getting started with them on trying to figure out market development and take a look at some of their target markets. A bit of good news with Amy's Kitchen. When they first moved here, they talked to us about health, I always call it preventative health maintenance, but it's a wellness type center where their employees get counseling and get preventative medicine to some degree in a center that's actually located on their sites. And they're going to be doing this in 3 locations this year, one in California, one in Oregon, and then later on this year in Pocatello. So this will help their employees stay healthier, which lowers the cost of health care for all of us, but also creates a more steady and better served population and workforce that they have. So we're really excited to see that happen, and we'll of course try to get an grand opening or ribbon cutting for that when that happens. But just one of the benefits of having a quality company that with a 20 to 30% growth rate annually. On semiconductor, real quick, we've talked about the benefits of their expansions, but we're also collaborating with them and ISU to get back to a more involved partnership with the university and its electrical engineering and other other engineering departments to help with things like instruction and research and growing the talent base that they're going to need on into the future. A couple updates. Your Fit, that industry shadowing program that we're going to do, or actually the College of Technology and Department of Labor, they're going to be doing the industry shadowing part of that, which is called Growing Together. It's a program that the Department of Labor has already run 1 year with teachers, but we're expanding that to career advisors and counselors. And so that'll be occurring in August. I think it's August 11th that they'll have those workshops and that shadowing. But then there's a follow-up for the career advisors and coordinators, and that'll be coming up in September, and that'll be held at the College of Technology, where they'll give them some more in-depth information on the career training and also some more information on the careers that are available for students with 1 or 2 years of education that offer high-tech and high demand and high wages. Buchanan and Edwards just celebrated a 20-year anniversary. They had a small reception for their employees, and I counted about 20 of them that were there. The CEO came out, and so they not only did a reception in Washington, but they felt that we're a strategic part of their operation and thought enough of us to have a small reception here. So we're really looking forward to great things happening with them as well. They also are partnering with Idaho State University with the contacts that we help them make up there to develop more of their talent as they move ahead. We've got some elite programs at the computer sciences department at ISU, and then they're trying to take advantage of those. So it comes down to the results that we bring, just investment, creation of jobs and revenue and wage increases. We're going to take a look at some updated data, but we did have quite an increase, almost $5,000 between 2013 and 2015. And so we continue to lead the state in our workforce development programs, and so it's just taking another phase with going with the right fit, which is what I described to you. We'll probably do some career expos again next year to get back to the students that haven't seen that at their high schools. So I want to thank you very much. Hope you appreciate our proven track record. One of the other things that we have coming up with one of our committees is our public relations committee, but they're hoping that they can reach out to businesses that are looking for new locations, expansion locations, through a couple of programs. They started one that they initially termed it I Love Pocatello, and it's where companies in our community, we're going to interview them, and we're going to have a contest with, it's either going to be a written submission, composition, or a video talking about why they like doing business here in Pocatello, and we've actually have thought about it, and it's probably going to be a Southeast Idaho promotion or campaign to see why companies all across Southeast Idaho, which is really our market area. That was the reason they wanted to promote that way, is Pocatello is the retail hub for Southeast Idaho, and try to get the businesses here to explain why it's such a great place to do business. Hopefully somebody looking on our internet websites and social media will see that and check us out. Likewise, we're going to incorporate interviews with our local businesses, some of our key partners as well, to explain why it is they think we have a great business climate. So through that, we hope to elevate our profile publicity-wise as a business community and as a great business climate. So with that, I'd answer any questions.
Questions, Council?
I just heard that Amazon's going to Nampa and Caldwell area. Were we a player in that, or?
No, we weren't contacted on that site selection, and I suspect it's because there's a fulfillment center just out in the Salt Lake City area that probably serves this area. And so I'm going to guess that that's the reason for it. From what I hear, it's pretty highly mechanized, a lot of robotics operating the facility. But that would be my explanation, because when you have distribution centers, they always are going to look at minimizing the mileage to their service area. And so since we've got one basically 2 hours away, to try to put another one here that's going to serve the Boise area wouldn't be a good logistics solution.
John, are we missing incentives to bring companies to Pocatello or to Idaho?
We can work the incentives that we need to provide or meet the competition. Sometimes we have to work pretty hard to figure out how that structure is going to work. When we take a look at, and we were in the run for the Weatherby facility that located out in Wyoming. That building was provided for them free of charge, and I'm going to guess it's a 5-year lease. I've had another firearms manufacturer that was looking at us and at Texas, and I met them at the SHOT Show, and then just out of the blue, Ohio, not necessarily a firearms mecca, just swoops out of the sky and offers them a free building. And so there's ways that we can try to help with underwriting the costs of a facility and land, but it's pretty tough. But Idaho just doesn't have the structure particularly to offer those kinds of incentives unless communities try to figure out a way to come up with the money to do that. But it's sometimes it's just a matter of how we work the budgets. But for the most part, if we're willing to utilize tax increment finance and the structure of that to its maximum, and the tax exemption program to the county, we usually can use that along with our business climate advantages to be in the running. Now with Weatherby, we were able to offer assistance with remodeling the building. But a remodeled building typically doesn't have the appeal that a rent-free building that's brand new is going to have. So sometimes the competition can be pretty outrageous. That's pretty extreme. And I'm sure that community, it's a small community in Wyoming, that's probably the only project they've had in 10 years.
Well, quite frankly, that's happening more and more often. I mean, you look at Farmers Insurance, they went to Detroit because they were given a 100,000 square foot building and $30 million to relocate and all this stuff. And so those things you just can't compete with. And so when people start throwing buildings at them and then over and above that, giving them tax incentives and stuff, it just doesn't pencil out. And those are tough things to overcome. So
one of the things I have come across is that in deference to tax incentives, that if there's a workforce development on an ongoing basis with the university and subsidizing initially for workforce rather than taxes. But a lot of companies really see that as beneficial, and the communities don't get strung out in subsidizing somebody else's taxes. You're investing directly in the job. They tie the job to incentives, and it seems to be a more fluid form of recruitment and a more fluid form of investment, because even if the company leaves, you've trained your people. And so I think the stuff you're doing with ISU, I think we just need to be more in on that. And if ISU becomes legendary in recruitment and then relocation of those people that get trained to business, I think that helps us all the way around.
It's Workforce Development Training Fund. Works with university, most of the time with College of Technology, to put grant dollars into a customized training fund, which they can assemble. Even if they don't have the curriculum, they can assemble that. And yeah, that's one of the standards. And a lot of states use that. Ours isn't limited to 50%, like I know Wisconsin was, and I know Indiana was. So we do have some advantages there, and I think that does help our other incentives. You know, like I say, using TIF to discount land prices and things like that. There are other things that we can do.
Super. Any other questions? Super. Thank you, John. Doing a great job. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item number 6 is a Terry First project update. Planning and Development Services staff will be present to update the council on the status of the Terry First project. And I regretfully, I'm going to have to step out. And anytime you get mad in a tie and a suit jacket, you want to take advantage, a sports jacket, you want to take advantage of that, and I don't get to today, so.
Well, I had to make up for it for Tuesday night.
That's right.
My shorts and t-shirt.
So, Council President, if you would just adjourn this meeting when we're done, then that'd be great, because the other 2 items have been pulled. Thank you.
Sorry, I can't see.
Back. There we go.
Put your glasses to see, obviously.
All right. Good morning, Mayor and council members. Matthew Lewis, senior planner. And
Melanie Gigley. And I'm Melanie too.
Well, the mayor. I didn't think he was actually going to leave.
He's actually going to.
He has a presentation he needs to make it do.
I understand. Good morning, council members. I'm before you this morning to present a brief update on the Terry First project. Just as kind of a reminder, the council may recall authorizing the mayor to sign submission of an application to community builders for direct technical assistance to develop a vision for East Terry Street extending from South First Avenue to South Fifth Avenue. The total monetary match from the city is $5,000, of which we will receive up to $27,700 in assistance. City staff was informed on April the 6th, 2018, that our project was selected for technical assistance over 13 other applications. The Terry Street First Avenue corridor is envisioned as becoming the central pedestrian connection between ISU, the historic warehouse district, and onto Old Town Pocatello. By focusing on the streets between these destinations, it is hoped that the Terry First project will help create a more livable, vibrant corridor that enhances the economy, draws people from ISU into the warehouse district, and supports adjacent neighborhoods and redevelopment opportunities with increased multimodal opportunities. Both streetscape design and on-the-ground placemaking will figure prominently into this project. A walk and talk event was held this past Tuesday evening, which included our partners from Community Builders and Team Better Block. Over 70 citizens attended this event, including Mayor Blad, Councilwoman Adamson, Rurick, and Manan, as well as ISU President Saturday. All attendees were excited and engaged, and it's probably one of the best turnouts I've been involved with in a planning point of view. And it was a good turnout. Terry First will incorporate an on-the-ground demonstration of potential physical improvements into the project, often referred to as placemaking or tactical urbanism. This aspect of the project may incorporate temporary parklets, bike lanes, straw bale pedestrian islands, and intersection art or other tactics to give people a sense of how an updated streetscape would function. Applying these types of temporary installations provides a sense of possible without committing exorbitant sums of funding. Moreover, because of their temporary nature, these types of activities allows communities to learn by experimentation, homing in on the final designs before permanent changes are made. This is an opportunity to see what works and what doesn't in our community. Based on what was heard from attendees and opportunities along the project area, Team Better Block will provide a proposed concept plan on July the 27th. So that's just a brief introduction to where we are today. And I just wanted to point your attention, if you haven't gone, we do have a website, terrystreet.com, or Terry Street, what is it?
Terryfirst.com.
And there's numerous ways that you can participate. We have what they call a voice mapping activity. And I'm not an expert on all this stuff here. So. I'm used to using my
the mouse.
My little mouse. What do you do? Just scroll down.
Just keep clicking on the down arrow.
Good. There's a mouse on this side.
On the behind the laptop.
Oh, it's around behind you. Thank you.
I can deal with the mouse. That's much better.
I saw a dead mouse someone listed on the street.
So, folks that have participated, if you go to this map, just to give you an idea, you can click on a specific location, and then you can provide, kind of a comment there. This one deals with the warehouses, great place to be, likes old buildings, so forth, just to paraphrase. And you can do that along this corridor. This one is in regards to bike lanes between down Terry to First Avenue, or ultimately to Old Town. So this is the corridor we're talking about. So this is ISU. Elmer's Restaurant on the corner of South 5th and Terry extends to South First and extends down that corridor. In the walk and talk, we started at the Portland Valley Brewing. and had a kind of an introductory type meeting there with the folks that attended. And we broke out into 3 different groups. And some walked all the way down to the intersection of South 5th and Terry. Others walked to this point. And in the group I was in, and all the groups that anybody attended that I heard were very engaged and really excited about it. So,
what would be the makeup of those 70 people? You mentioned the city council and the university president, but are they residents near there?
Yeah. We went out and we did a pretty significant outreach with the businesses, Elmer's, with the residents, neighborhood, what was it now?
NeighborWorks, the Whittier neighborhood had representation with property owners directly on the corridor, especially along First, and then just tons of interested people from across the community.
Yeah, there's a lot of individuals that in planning in all the years that I've worked, I've seen new faces at this particular event. And so that's a good thing. And all of them were real excited about it. And like I said, there's a really good kind of overall turnout in terms of, I guess, diversity. But the neighborhood was, folks were there, NeighborWorks and so forth. So this one here is Opportunity Points. Same kind of concept. So if we click on one of these, talks about the low level of traffic, great for cyclists, but the angled parking spaces puts cyclists at risk. So that's good information for us along this corridor. Comment regarding sidewalks, and so forth. And then another one is a community questionnaire.
Matt, have you entered yet the information from the walk and talk, the comments on the cards and things, or are you in the process of?
Yeah, we haven't looked at those. What we're going to do is actually scan those and send them to Andrew with Team Better Block. We met with them for about an hour and a half yesterday, just to kind of, okay, what do we hear? They're going to go back and kind of, look at a big picture and give us some idea on the 27th as to, okay, here's some of the projects that we're recommending, and then we're going to kind of whittle that down into
manageable,
into the build out, which you want to mark on your calendars will be the 22nd through the 25th. One thing and the reason that we at staff kind of picked that time frame was to coincide with the Sagebrush Arts Festival, which is that same weekend. So, and they're located like right across from Terry Street. And so we thought that was a good opportunity to say, people that are attending that event can go, hey, what's going on over there? And so forth. And so, that's kind of why we picked that. And this is a pretty fast project. So we're talking 90 days from the time that we receive, notice that of the acceptance to the point that we get to the build out, and then we will get some recommendations back from community builders and Team Better Block probably in September, October. So we do get kind of a product from that. And then finally, I just wanted to show you the questionnaire. You again go to the website and you can fill this out and make comment on it. We've been real involved with the media. I think there's at least 2 television stations there that night. And I know Idaho State Journal was there, and the Journal also published twice, I think, prior to that meeting of the events and so forth. So, and our staff, Logan and so forth, have been really helpful in terms of communicating back with the community builders and myself and so forth. So this is really good outreach, I think, and it's something new for our community, and I think it's kind of exciting. It'll be interesting to see how it all flushes out in the end. But do you have any questions?
I had a conflict, so I wasn't able to go, but I talked to some people that did, and they thought it was a great event, but they couldn't envision the Old Town connection because they perceive Old Town as being on the other side of the tracks. And I thought we have had a discussion about how the Benton Street Bridge could be transformed as a bikeway and pedestrian way, and it might be good if we incorporated that into what we're selling as this connectivity, because the person I talked to, at least one of them, did not know how that was going to happen, because Old Town really goes beyond the Center Street, but underpass, but people really perceive Old Town as being the west side of the tracks. And so I would just suggest somehow we have a conceptual thing of what that Benton Street overpass could be, because it's right there in the center.
Sure, and really this links in with some of the other river visioning stuff that's gone on, and this is a piece in some ways of that. And yes, Benton is, and changes, potential future, maybe changes to that. This would be a link to that, and then also the underpass, both. That's kind of why we went down the whole stretch of First. But yes, that it is a little tenuous looking, but this is kind of the first step to get people coming that direction.
Yeah. So, but I just,
and we could get some of that
in terms of the connectivity in people's minds.
Yeah.
If we've got different things going on, it would help for people to understand how the planning is connecting and not isolated.
Yeah, maybe get some of those visuals out there so they're seeing it again. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a lot of those with River Vision, and there's a couple different renderings that I've seen with regards to the Benton Street. And I just wanted to show you, if you're interested, with regards to Team Better Block. They have a website as well. You can go to that and kind of get an idea as to some of the urban, or technical urbanism is a fancy word for it, placemaking. So many different ways that communities have looked at. They've done things as simple as, okay, let's in front of this restaurant put like a cornhole type thing. If you've ever played that, it's pretty fun. And just different thing, ping pong, and and just I
remember it was Seattle or Portland recently, and they had metal, kind of indestructible ping pong tables. And I thought, God, who's going to play?
Yeah.
And when we walked back through, both of the tables were being used.
Yeah.
So you make places for the public to be together and to use outside, and then also they are hopefully patronizing the businesses that are around there.
So anyways, that is just a brief update on our Terry First project, and as I noted, if you can mark your calendars for the 26th, I think the actual build out's probably going to be on the 25th, which is a Saturday. And I'll get, after the details kind of get fleshed out, I'll certainly inform you of times and so forth. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you. And I appreciate your support on this project. It's kind of neat to see the community come together on something that's kind of out of the box. So.
Anyone have any additional questions or comments you'd like to make?
Just a comment. I was pleased at, the turnout in general, but also the makeup of the people that were there. There were a lot of ISU people, so it really brought in that involvement, and then also a lot of architecture and design people. Sure. And I had some really interesting discussions. As a former architecture and design person, we had some great conversations, and there's a lot of people interested with also good experience and ideas too. So I think this will get a lot of support from the community, is the way it's looking. So.
It's very different from Pocatello. We haven't tried something quite like this before, so it's exciting to see something different. And when we have the installation ideas, volunteers are going to be welcome to paint or put cones here or there, or whatever it is we end up deciding to do.
Hay snake thingies.
Yes.
Whatever
there's some interesting.
There are some interesting options. We don't know yet what they're going to look like.
We don't know how that's going to flesh out.
But part of the cool thing is it gives us an idea of what we could do with real structures, then permanent concrete, whatever, before we put the money into it, and see if it's accepted, if it works.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your leadership in this. Council, anything else before we adjourn? Thank you all for being here, and we will consider ourselves adjourned for today. Thank you.